she had an automatic hand that and I'm going to tell you, that thing would suck you up and fling you back into the sea, amen, faster than any restraint that you could ever have. I'm going to tell you, because Mama was taking care of me, right? I remember that. Hey, and it was quick, too. Man, Doug, you know, I'm going to tell you, Bruce Lee didn't move that fast, amen?
Oh, she had a perfect tennis game going on.
Yes, you're right. You're exactly right. Mama would keep you safe. Mama would do what? Mama would, hey, I'm going to tell you, if you fell and you was hurting and you had a problem, what would Mama do? She would be there to lift you up and to help you and to love on you and to do those things. You think about that. And when you look, you know, it's important. Hey, I go right back to that example because why? Here, Jesus is our high priest, and that's important that we know. Because, you know, and I'm going to make reference to what we've got in our text, but also in Matthew 6 and 8 it says, "Be not therefore like unto them." He said, "For your Father knoweth what things you have need of before you ask." That's in Matthew 6 and 8. He already knows what you need before we ask. Man. I wish I'd asked that I wish I'd asked my mama before I took that big old mouthful of Pop Rocks and drank the Coca-Cola behind it. I done that when I was little, yeah. Oh, you're going to get sick. No, children, don't try that at home. Amen. You know they're going to try it, right? Okay. Let me know how that goes for you. But Jesus is our high priest. And he's before the throne of God. Now, under the terms of the Old Covenant, now you think about here. Now, let me go back for just a minute. Go back to the Old Covenant. Let's go back to the Jewish covenant here. The Old Covenant. Under Jewish people did not have access to the Holy of Holies, right? Only those that were priests, the high priest, could go into the holy place. And what did they do? They offered up for the sins of everybody that was there, right? They would bring their animals, the bullocks, the goats, and all. They would dress them. They would dress them, and they would, they would burn those things, and they would offer them up. Now think about this. And the blood they would pour over the mercy seat. Now think about this. The dwelling place of the Lord's presence was only for those men, right? But now in the day that we're in a sense, He has made each and every one of you priests. Now I'm not talking about priests with the collar on, right? No. But He's made you a priest in a sense that you can come before the Holy of Holies yourself. In other words, guess what? You don't need me. You can go to God yourself. You ever thought about that? Ain't that a wonderful premise? Because that means that, hey, sometimes you're going to pick up the phone and you're going to call Scott, and he ain't going to be there. You ever done that? Amen, come on, yeah, be on. That's right. He ain't going to be there. Yeah, there you go. And sometimes you think about it, but how many times you ever picked up the phone and called Jesus and he ain't been there? He's been there on time, all the time, every time, right? He's always. And I like to think about it that way. How about, hey, we might run and shout around the church on that one, amen, because, hey, there ain't never been a time that I've called on the holy and righteous God and He ain't answered. Amen. So we have a place in the dwelling place of the Lord's presence. And only the high priest back in that, you can look back, let's look back at, let's look forward. Hebrews 9 real quick. Turn there real quick. We're not going to keep you very long, but I want to make a point here with this. In Hebrews 9, if you look in chapter 9, and let's start there at verse, let me figure. Let's just go back to the first verse. And look at what it says. It said, "Then verily was the first covenant." Now he's talking about when the priest would offer up for the sacrifices, the bulls and goats. And he had ordinances in divine service, and what? A worldly sanctuary. He said, "For there was a tabernacle made first, within was the candlestick, and the table, and the showbread, which was called the sanctuary. And after this, the second veil, the tabernacle, was called the holiest of all, which had the golden censer, and the ark of the covenant. And laid around about it was the gold, and it was within the golden pot, and the manna, and Aaron's rod, and it budded, and the tables of the covenant." Now, you know, what's funny is, remember one time that they asked what the Ark of the Covenant was for. One of the pastors had asked me when I was younger, and I said, "Don't it hold the Ten Commandments?" And he told me no, I was wrong. Well, right there it says, what does it say? It says that also there was Aaron's rod that budded. There's also the manna, you remember, pieces of manna that God had fed them with. And so you see there what it's going to say. He said, and over that, the cherubims of glory, the shadowing the mercy seat, of which we cannot now speak particularly. It says, now when these things were thus ordained, the priest went in always, it says, into the first tabernacle, accomplishing the service of God. He said, but into the second went the high priest alone. Notice he said alone. He don't have anybody with him. Once every year, and not without blood. In other words, he went in with the blood of the sacrifice, and he offered for himself. No, first he had to offer up for himself. Because why? He had sins, right? So he had to offer up sacrifice for himself. Then it says, for the heirs of the people. Now notice what it goes on to say. Now, the Holy Ghost did signify that the way into the holiest of all was not yet made manifest while the first tabernacle was yet standing. He said, which was a figure of the time then present, he said, in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices that could not make him that did the service perfect, as pertaining to what? The conscience. Why? Because he would go in, he would offer up the sacrifice, and then what happens? He would go back, and what would happen? He would sin again, right? And every time they had to keep doing this thing over and over and over. And I notice what he says. In 10, which stood only in the meats and the drinks and the divers washings and the carnal ordinances, he said, imposed on them until the time of the Reformation. But Christ, being come a high priest of the good things to come, by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with the hands, not made with our hands, right? He said, that is to say, not of this building, neither by the blood of goats or calves, but by his own blood, he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. Now, there's some words I really like. An eternal redemption. Us. It's personal. Man, I'm about to run out the door and shout some. Because number one, it's eternal, Randy. Hey, I don't have to worry about it. Hey, there's no good thing that I did to lose it. Hey, there's no bad thing I did to lose it. No good thing I did to obtain it. Hey, and I'm going to tell you, Jesus is the one that brought it, and he did it with his blood, and he went in once and for all, and he offered up sacrifice for sin, and therefore when I sin, I can come to him and I can say, Lord, I need your forgiveness, and he'll do it every time. You know why? Because he's a mighty, he's a good, and he's a holy and a righteous God. And what he said in his word is true. He loves us. That brings us to the third thing. Jesus is our high priest before the throne of God. In Hebrews 4 and 14, he says, seeing that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession of faith. And he goes on in there, the Bible teaches that humans are sinful. Romans 3:23 says, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. The only way into the Father's grace is offered by Christ. It says right here, he's obtained eternal redemption for me, for you. It's personal. Hey, everybody that sits here in this place, we can all be saved. Jesus also, he sympathizes with our need. And you say, well, what does that mean? And it goes a little deeper. That's the only word I can think about, but it goes deeper than that. You know, I'd have to even say that every need that we've ever had, Jesus felt it. He felt it when he went to the cross. Have you ever thought about what the people thought about him? And he knew their thoughts and intents of the heart when he hung there on the cross. And they would say, crucify him. But yet he looked out across that people and he went, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That is the love and the mercy and the grace that he's shown. Now go on. We read Hebrews 2. Go back in Hebrews 2 real quick.